Recorded July 29th, 2024. Good afternoon, Ray. Good afternoon, Brody. Good afternoon, Rodney. How's everybody doing?
Fairly well. Apparently, Brody's with us. There he is.
Yeah.
Nope, he's gone again. Nope, there he is. Okay. I feel like it's almost like a Benny Hill show at this point.
Yeah. Who's on first? That would be the Three Stooges. Yeah, not the Three Musketeers.
No, they weren't the original ones who did the Who's on First skit. It was someone.
Oh, Abbott and Costello. Abbott and Costello.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah.
I actually saw it or something. I had a joke from the Benny Hill days that I was going to say on this podcast.
How did I do that?
It would absolutely. I think it's funny, but you know we do have.
Does it hold up though? Let's see. Does it hold up?
Does it hold up?
Be back.
Let's not.
Oh yeah, it holds up.
Brody has gone off camera.
Brody's like, I gotta like my job.
Brody can't take it anymore. Yeah,
can't take it. So, while Brody's out getting his to our watchers and viewers, Brody's out getting his he has a new little office and putting his stuff together in the studio, so he gets to grace this period. But let's talk about what we've been doing here the last few weeks, actually last week. So if you guys hear in the background with me, because I think they're playing Toto in the background, I'm using a work shared space. Actually, I'm using a space that's in a brewery.
Nice. I was about to ask. I was like, that's pretty cool.
Hey, right here, get you some of this emergency drinking beer.
Look at
I want to finally make it to ATL and like whatever this is. I want to do that.
Well, you were supposed to come. I was going to take you out on the tour a little bit. I think I was super busy, but now it's opening up a little bit. If you have to get down here, I think the Microsoft office is back open, so the ceilings are not raining down on everybody in there. Is fixed. But before we get, I'll go first. Continuation of the last show that we had. I think everyone knew I was stuck in Chicago. Had to play around and manipulate a bunch of stuff to get home. I don't shout out everybody for doing your job, but I shout out Southwest. I think the thing that put them in the doghouse a winter before, right, when they had antiquated systems and stuff like that, it's all to save their butt, right? Because they were still in the process of modernizing their environment. So no, the stuff about them running Windows 95 and 3.1 is not what I'm talking about. From the inside, I got some folks over there. They are doing a huge modernization of their stuff, and they weren't fully impacted like everyone else, right? So for me to say this doesn't really put anything out, because now the world knows who's actually using CrowdStrike in active mode as their EDR, right, and MDR. But Southwest wasn't fully impacted because they use a little bit of both. They had a very small footprint of CrowdStrike, right, versus MDE, right? Yeah. So they had something, but it wasn't a thing that would have impacted their operations. And more than likely, it was by virtue of acquisition. When you acquire a company or a subset, you have to sort of use their stuff until you get it migrated over. But they were able to get me accommodated on the flight for me to get home. Delta gets the gas face. Not only do I get my bag 7 days late, they send me a measly card from this, destroy my bag. I should have took a picture of it. They ran my bag. It was soaking wet. The stuff on the inside, like it sat out in the rain. And all the handles were torn off.
What?
Like you know how you dump the bag in that pen with the gorilla, the Samsonite gorilla from the old commercials, and he beats up on it. And so I'm going to send them a nice little letter. I'm going to say, this is what you're going to do.
I feel like you're sending them a letter right now, Edward.
Yeah, I'm sending you a letter.
And a picture of you jumping over the suitcases like OJ.
Yeah, do that. I'm gonna do that right there through the airport. But nobody was running the airport because everybody was on the floor sleeping from the cancel flight. Things happen. I'm not here to beat them up. I fly them. I'm diamond on their airline. It is. So I'm status dropping. I'm gonna give them a call.
So I'm super sad about that because Delta's usually my favorite, and of course Cincinnati is a Delta hub, and I can't complain.
It is. Atlanta is the headquarters and the hub, which seems to have the drawback is when things are running smoothly. And then I'm a person who looks back at past performance, right? Yeah. People always want, what have you done lately? Are you good now? That's for the Olympics. But you look at past performance, and Delta has been one of the lowest in canceled flights. They don't do that, right? That's not what they do. I think the response needs to be worked on. So they got some of the pains that Southwest had about 2 years ago, whenever that snow apocalypse or weather thing happened, right? I think that customer service is lacking because until you put them in fire, you never really had to beat customer service. Right? You were just customer service. Now you have to do service, right? So we'll see. As far as real work, having to get my Sentinel muscles back together. I'm covering Sentinel again. I'm actually covering Copilot for security, so I got to really dig into that and a couple other things I'm going to be tasked with doing. So we'll see how that changes. New industry to cover. So I got a new vertical, so that's a whole lot of new learning. And what else? Talked to Frank for a good while. Big shout out to you, Frank. Got some good ideas coming from him soon.
When can I meet Frank? I hear about Frank. I have.
It's like Elizabeth on the Sanford and Son show. It doesn't really exist.
The only time you can see Frank,
yeah,
he gives you a special mushroom you have to take, and you have to be in a certain spot in a certain place. Then he will manifest, and you can
to be able to see him.
To be able to see Frank.
You talked about your Sentinel muscles. How does this apply? I thought this looked cool today. I haven't had a chance to read through it. Did you see this?
Yes, multi-tiered logging. So you're going to have these logs. So we would go out and do normalization exercises with customers to say, give me the value. What is the value of this log? Why are you bringing this log in? What are you doing with this log? We had, and this why it is about architecture and getting better and helping the customer understand the ingestion model. This is about cost savings and cost rationalization, because basic logs weren't doing it. So what we're doing is auxiliary logs that give you another option outside of putting it in a hot space, which is the primary log analytics workspace, or using ADX, Azure Data Explorer. I see that as helping out for those who don't have super complicated data ingestion and analysis, and they really want to stick it to that. I'm also seeing a trend of people want to just dump data flat, just like text files, because they want to create this data lake because they have another intelligence tool that can look at just a flat logging to do it.
Like ChatGPT.
I got pulled into something you said, and I had forgotten how to do it. I haven't done it so long. Like, can Sentinel pull in and transform these into flat text files from Palo Alto? I'm like,
that's interesting.
Yeah, I forgot how to do it. So I went back and found an old Shadir article, and I went in my log and I practiced it. Took me about an hour to see it, and I'm like, oh, okay. Really haven't done this in like a year, maybe two. I couldn't do it with Palo Alto because my Palo Alto's down, but I was able to flatten out my Fortinet logs, flatten out the Meraki logs, and I got another firewall or something I'm using. But it took me a minute to figure it out. I'm like, golly, I don't. Then I said, quit looking for the solution network. Look for the person that solved the problem. And so I went and said, oh, Shadir, he's the one that did it. He does this stuff, right? Or so I looked up his articles and I found it and got it done. Some cool Copilot stuff that's coming out. Can't really talk about it yet. Copilot for security. And trying to get into more of the Copilot stuff that deals with images. I know, Rod, you use DALL-E and you use a couple of others for images. Started playing around with it. My missus has gotten really good at ChatGPT. Scary good. So I got to play with that a little bit more. And she's liking Copilot too, so go figure. That's all I did. There's some new MDI enhancements. I think there was a blog posted, and I sent something for the last show. I forgot to pull it for this show. Azure Monitor has something now called Azure Pipeline. And what this does is, in public preview, it is for high volume ingestion, like super high volume. So this thing can come in and essentially not throttle the logs, but cache the log intake, right? And so it sort of writes a header in advance of the log coming in to know the space for it that's coming in. I had it. I'm working with a Microsoft partner that I worked with last year. I won't mention their names, for a customer who had a need for this. And they worked with them, and finally they came back, and the program manager said, hey, it's ready, Ed. Can you pull that partner back in? So I'll have it ready for the next show. It's actually pretty good. It was called Project Stratus was the name of it, Project Stratus. And check it out, Rod. It's done now. And it's going to be really cool for those. I don't know if it takes a single thing and then breaks the log ingestion like this, so you can get it all in and don't have to do it. Writes the header in advance in the middle. For those who see my kick Kamehameha, right? Doing that. And then it brings it back together, places it in the right context because it had the header file for where the log should be anyway. So I'm going to read into it. I probably oversimplified. Get away from there. And that's all I got. Ray, what about you?
Well, I'm feeling better from last week. Thank you, everyone, holding it down. Got the hole fixed. So shout out to my in real life team coming together. Calling up my partner, like, oh, there's a problem in my ceiling. What's going on? What's wrong with you? So drove down like 6 hours to help me out. So that was nice and heartwarming. And I didn't have like the mental meltdown that I definitely could have had to the extent it could have been. Other than that, let's see, work is amazing. So that's a highlight, spotlight right there. Planning for Black Hat next week. I'm trying to get like medallion status, Edward. So I don't rock the boat with Delta for me. So planning my trip, doing lots of feedback sessions with our customers and working with the feature PMs to get all of the capabilities and features for our roadmap. So that is really exciting stuff. Other than that, I have my cyber ops graduate program kickstarting, I believe, this weekend or early next week, but they like preview the course material this weekend. So that's always like a nice like decompression activity for me, which is funny, but I find it very cathartic to just kind of zone out and get your lab going and, boot up Metasploit or whatever. You do some stuff, right? Get a little technical in the zone. Don't really need to interact with people. So that's like my safe space.
No, I enjoy that too. I absolutely agree. Being able to just focus on something. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Unplug a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So it got in real life handled, work life good, and then school life, right? So knocking it out the park so far, knock on wood. What about you, Rod? When's your next book coming out?
So I have a book that comes out on Friday. And then I'm working on another one that'll be out probably targeted toward October. And then I'm also working on that Copilot for security thing. But I don't know. I haven't slept too well the past few days. My wife and my youngest daughter, they take an annual trip with their friends to Upper Peninsula. So they're there for the week. And I never sleep when the wife isn't here. I can't. Aww. I don't know. Just after all these years being married, I can't sleep without her. So I just give it up. It's like I woke up about 2 a.m. last night and I thought, yeah, I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm just going to get up.
Well, that's so sweet. I mean, that's also like a little concerning, but also sweet. Like that's
yeah. So I can see how these couples, when they get older,
the parakeet,
where one passes away and the other one passes away like right away because you're sort of lost. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't know if I'll struggle with that, but like bless you.
Wait, bro, y'all folks. Brody, what you got going on, brother?
I am patiently waiting a couple of upcoming assignments, right? Customers coming up. So I've got 2 gigs coming up at the start of August, and one is an identity design and assessment for a public sector customer. And then I have a security operations and / Copilot for security engagement with a private sector customer. And so I've just been, with the help of Rod and other resources, I have been upskilling and getting back into the program. And that's mostly been the focus. Oh, and cleaning my office, trying to get it like ready for like being on camera and stuff. So that's been new, trying to get that going. And
it's missing one thing. It's missing one thing. If you just had that picture back up, I don't think anybody would even second guess.
What picture? Is it just a picture of Brody?
Oh, the map of Mars?
Yeah. If that's not there, it's not even that. It doesn't even.
I know. I'm gonna put it like here, I think, and I'm gonna have like the 3 pictures in a series right there. Switch it up, bro. I gotta switch it up.
Yeah, I get it.
You need more flair.
What's that?
You need more flair.
Oh, I don't have the required pieces of flair to work here.
You don't have the required pieces of flair.
Oh, okay.
We're gonna
What's the
fix
minimum
you.
amount that I need to work here?
30.
That's just
30.
the minimum, though, right?
At 30,
Yeah.
30 just shows you showing some effort.
It's
Yeah.
meeting expectations. Okay.
Yeah, meeting expectations, right?
Got it.
Yeah, we do that. But hey,
Better.
you sound like you almost got your feet back up under you, Brody, because I know you had Daddy, you know,
Daddy
you know,
brain.
fog. Yeah, Daddy fog. You know,
Yep.
his hands is twitching like he's changing a diaper. Like, okay, fix that part. All right, but we good. Hey, but we got our guest here.
We
He's a
do.
returning. Oh yeah, he's on the show. One of the more interesting shows this year. If you really want to get into the weeds about how stuff is and how AI is going to take over the world, and we'll be working in the uranium salt mines for our Overlord Masters. And we have Mr. Walt Disney joining us back. He's in somebody's capsule, looks like. And welcome back, Mr. Disney.
It's good to be back. How y'all doing?
You know what? Life is fair unless it happens to us first. Then it's not fair. You know, so whatever life wants to do, go practice on someone else, then bring it to us, and then we'll decide what we want life. You know, life is good. But thank you for coming back on the show. I actually went back and rewatched the show because at the very end we were sort of running out of cycles. But you were showing some stuff that was super interesting. But we're going to hand the show over to you. Either pick up a sequel, yet another Disney sequel, or you can totally go off script instead.
Well,
you know,
I think maybe we start. I think since last show, he wasn't even able to tell us anything. He mum's the word, but something's kind of changed in your life, at least professionally, right, Robert?
Yeah, it has actually. So as of the 1st of July, I ended up getting hired into a role as an artificial intelligence technical specialist. So I took all the work that I've done over the last couple of years now, really trying to beef up my AI prowess and skill set, and managed to parlay that into a job with Microsoft Federal. So still within federal defense, but now I am an AI technical specialist covering all of the DoD, which I feel is going to keep me really, really busy here in the next next fiscal. So So does
the U.S. government, how do they approach AI? Are they super tentative, or are they just all in like some people are?
Honestly, there are pockets of all in, and and all aspects, I guess, of approach to adoption. And I think some of that comes from just typical hesitance, or as far as the resistance to it, to any resistance, it's just that hesitance on what is the risk, what can we actually use it for, is this really an AI case, or could it be done by something more like should you use generative AI for this, or should you use a different maybe a custom built AI ML model? So I think it's more right now, AI is obviously not in its infancy. I mean, just look at your Facebook feed or whatever, your targeted ads and stuff, or you say something and then you look at your phone and you see a targeted ad from that. It's been under the hood, for many years now. But I think with the emergence of generative AI, we've really seen kind of a light turn on for, oh, wow, so this is something now. It puts it in the hands of everybody because it's natural language.
Very cool. Very cool role.
Yeah, different layers of adoption of each layer of the tech, right? I think in some parts of AI is in the infancy, and some of it is I won't say mature. I don't think it'll ever mature. I think it'll keep improving. That the maturity can never be achieved because it's just getting better, right? I think the maturity may come in the adoption, but I think sometimes people put maturity as this is the top line of how well the technology can go, or maybe how it's supported. The support of it is what I'm looking at, because I've never sat on a AI support call. Like, I don't even know what you would fix. Well, like, what's broken? What would you fix? So that's what I'm looking for. How do you support it?
I think it'd be just really emotional support at that point, because AI can hurt your feelings, right?
Yeah.
Call you a bad name, you're like, bad AI.
Yeah, but then you could ask it to make up for it, and say something nice.
Yeah. Well, and quite honestly, we had this use case last week, something else. Can't really talk about it, but the idea is that AI, or generative AI, just literally wants to please you. And it produced, and I can't tell you what it was, it produced responses, but the responses were absolutely 100% incorrect. But it pulled from what it thought you might want and say, here's the use case, here's my response. Go ahead, take that. And then I was like, oh my goodness. So you have to be super careful. It's just
it's interesting you bring that up. A lot of hesitance, obviously, on hallucinations. The idea of hallucinations. Oh, it can create something out of the ether, and there's actually settings for that where you can turn down the temperature, turn up the temperature, and just take just a moment to kind of explain that real quick. So, if you think about you've got a TV that displays in very, in a small resolution, right? Like something that used to be like an older cell phone or an old CRT TV. That's cathode ray tube for those of you that aren't old enough. But you got the screen resolution's real low, but then you want to watch it on a 4K TV. Well, it doesn't just display it down on the small corner of the TV, right? It displays it on the whole TV. So how does it do that? Well, it can either take those individual pixels and just multiply them by 4, and then you've got these huge blocks all over your TV, or it can do some creative interpolation, and you allow it to kind of fill in the gaps. Well, if this one's green and this one's red, this one in the middle is going to be something in the middle there, right? So AI will do the same thing with data if it doesn't know the answer. If you've got the temperature turned up enough, it will actually start to create things and be more creative versus if you turn the temperature down, it will basically kind of just try to rely on what it's got. So if you're asking it, I mean, there's use cases, guys, for all of that. If you want to brainstorm ideas for, I don't know, you want to develop a course of action for a DoD operation or a military, operation or non-military operation. You want to brainstorm ideas. You could do that with a high temperature, a high level of creativity. But then I think if you're going to be talking about maybe for a military operation, for an operation that is maybe where it's that's more high stakes, or more risky, well, you may want it to just simply follow regulations to the letter and not bend outside of those. And that's where a lower temperature, less creativity, more decisive, information, I think would be a better choice.
Yeah. Well, I think Edward was talking
it's really
a second ago about it getting better, or maybe maybe it's the adoption that we're kind of looking for, maybe not the evolution of the technology itself, because right now you kind of accept those responses in a way, right? So this is the way technology works. This is how the responses come back. You almost need, and we've talked about this before, almost jokingly, but it should probably get more serious along the line somewhere, where you have an AI that corrects AI, or like an editing AI for AI, or
like internal
copyright
affairs for AI.
Yeah. You have one AI that
you're talking about Copilot for Copilot.
Yeah.
Copilot for Copilot. There you go.
But you don't know what you don't know till you know it. You don't know that response. A lot of people won't. If it's a security thing, people that aren't well versed in security, they'll look at that and they don't know that it's not a proper response potentially.
That's the maturity piece, right? It's our understanding and our receptivity, or our willingness to explore that. That's what will mature.
But the idea here is, and I'm sorry, it's my little soapbox moment.
Yeah.
The idea here is that this generative AI, or these things that we're using generative AI to produce, these tools, we're supposed to kind of sort of trust them a little bit, or we're not supposed to be experts in that area to be able to use that specific thing, right? So if it's a security something, and I'm just the kind of a general IT pro, security is my secondary. I'm still responsible for security, but that's not my primary role. I need to still be able to do security, and I'm going to use this security tool to say, hey, I'm going to ask this question. I'm just going to assume that the responses that come back, I'm going to sort of trust them, because I don't have that expertise.
Would it make sense to structure your prompt with a directive to ensure that this is accurate and based on reality of present day?
Yeah. You need a reality plug-in. That would be good.
Well, one of the things, when you can look at AI, when you can run multi-intelligent instances. We need to patent that. Meaning I can run AI in the same environment, but isolate the response from its AI brethren to see if it gives me the same answer,
Yeah.
right? With the same data set, right? Probably simultaneously. I give you this problem and I can run it through multiple scenarios in AI and tell you each, not scenario, same scenario, but each AI computational vertical and say, okay, give me that answer. Now I think it's possible by having multiple people in your AI infrastructure that can run the same prompt, but unless the prompt is the same, you could alter the response from it. What I'm thinking is single prompt, send it to you, it splits it across 4 computational things, and then it comes back and gives a composite of the answers, right? But they can't cross-pollinate. The AI can't look on the other AI's paper and like, what did you put? No, none of that. I want to be able to see that. That's coming. And the other one, where it's turning up the thing it down, it's going to have risk and trust factors in it. It's like raising a teenager. I'm going to leave you at home this one time now. Don't make me not trust you, right? And I think you're going to have ways that you give AI demerits. You need to be able to tell it, this is bad, right? You need to do better of a sort and go. But hey, that's what I guess it's for. He's an expert. So we know about his new gig. We knew about a project he was working on. I don't know if it's a passion project or a work project. I think it was more passion. But now, Robert, you want to tell us or show us that a continuation of that cool thing, or do you have something cooler to show?
Oh, it depends on what you guys want to see, man. We got plenty that we can work on.
Brody had his hand up, or was he
What's
smelling
Brody
himself?
Uh, so Robert, what's what in your opinion, what are some of like the biggest challenges of integrating AI into existing defense systems? Like, how do you balance innovation and constraints on security and reliability?
Yeah, sure. I think right off the bat, thanks. A great question too. Right off the bat, I think being able to identify what justifies the use of AI and what doesn't. Do I need to throw everything at an LLM, which is, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love LLMs. I think they're amazing, but they're also computationally expensive. You know, they're processing expensive and intensive. But would a simple Python script to scrape through a data set have worked better? I can throw a million emails in an LLM and say, hey, I want to need you to tell me something about, you know, is there a social security number hiding in any of these? Sure, you can do that. But I can also build a regex search that'll go through all of them and just look for that pattern. So I think identifying what is an actual AI or LLM use case and what is not, I think is going to be, I think it's going to be really important moving forward.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome. Thank you. Well, let's see here. So last time, I think we left off tinkering around a little bit with some of the faux pilots, some of the cool little things that I was doing with my Python scripts and some Sentinel notebooks and whatnot. And it provided an expanded capability to some of our security platforms that don't exist natively in the platforms. Now, Rod's done an enormous amount of work to bring Copilot for Security to the masses and really inform everybody about what you can do with them, what they're useful for, and how you can integrate it into a SOC and into your security processes. On the downside, it's not available in all clouds. A lot of the customers I work with don't have access to it yet, but they're clamoring for that capability. I mean, when multinational corporations have access to something that, say, government businesses and government organizations do not, that creates a gap. And everybody wants to get on board with AI. So, well, a lot of people have just said, well, I guess we can't do it. Well, yes, you can. Yes, you can. I'm the guy that's going to show you how to do it. Or one of the people that can show you how to do it, because I have done it. Ultimately, our security platforms, pretty much all of our platforms have a REST API on the back end, or they have some form of a software development kit where you can integrate Microsoft capabilities with code to build your own applications that then authenticate to those. And that's kind of what I started doing a while back. And I think I said on the last one is actually my boss on I'm going to present now, if that's okay, guys. Cool. I think it was my boss at the time, Lily Davudian, who asked me. We were doing weekly. Yeah, we were doing weekly or monthly demonstrations of Microsoft security platforms. Each technical specialist would take an area, a Defender for Cloud or a Sentinel or Defender for Endpoint, and we would demonstrate that capability to the team. And she knew that I had dove all in on AI, and she had asked me, "Hey, I want to see ChatGPT integration with Sentinel." So,
by the way, Lily, friend of the show, come back anytime.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'm sure she'd be happy to come back.
She's busy these days. I've seen she's
she's very busy. She's actually an award winner now too.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. I can tell that. I tell Rob is trying to figure out how to do the share with the thing. It's not Teams. Help him out, Rod. He's looking for the Teams button.
No, I'm working on it.
Okay. He's working on it. We I think we had a little issue the first there we go. Yeah. Just takes a minute.
Yeah, you've always got to be careful. I learned my lesson very early, and I still learn it pretty frequently on sharing your whole screen, obviously in a demonstration. But I made sure I sanitized things, so we should be good to go now. So but yeah, so dropping into the Azure portal, portal.azure.com, drop over to Microsoft Sentinel. If it's not there, obviously you can type it in the top resources to jump there. I'm going to grab my instance. And again, this is a small IL2 tenant. It's just my personal tenant, but it's where I do a lot of building and a lot of demonstration work. And personally, I'd rather build or execute my own attacks on my own infrastructure so that I know what I'm looking for when I go in and do my investigations later. I know what I expect to see. So always a good thing to drop into your incident or your incident portal and see nothing there. That makes me happy. But in the last 30 days, I executed an attack in my environment. I can drop in, take a look. But if I wanted to determine what happened in this, I would have to do a lot of investigation and spend a little bit of time figuring it out. Now, anybody experienced in it would see this this document name, this RS4_WinATP, and know that it's one of our old canned attacks that was executed a script from within a Word document and scheduled a malicious task and some other things. But if you didn't know that, we'd have to go view the full details of it. And that drops us in here into the environment. And of course, it's going to be slow right now.
That's the way
I
all
have to reload it here in a second. Yeah, it is. The demo gods kill us every time, right?
Yep.
Cool. So we get here, and now I can see it's a multi-stage incident. It involves several minor attack phases, and I can drop through the timeline, look at the suspicious PowerShell that happened, anomalous activity. I could clean it up a little bit to get a little bit more. I mean, I've got a lot of information here on the screen. I'm still going to have to figure out what's going on. One of the beauties that Rod's shown us of Copilot for Security is having that automatic pop-up where I get a natural language translation that basically tells me in a paragraph or in a narrative what happened in that incident. And one of the ways that we used to be able, or before Copilot for Security, one of the ways that we could do this kind of investigation was to drop into the automations tab for automations, and we would go to, naturally, it's all going to be slow today, so I'll speak slowly. I'll just fill the gaps. So we go to our playbooks, and in playbooks, under one of those was the ability to take a Microsoft Sentinel incident and pipe the information from that then into a ChatGPT prompt. I think actually Rod's the one that showed us all that, if I'm not mistaken. But that capability of taking Sentinel data and passing it on to ChatGPT through dynamic entries like incident entity, incident alert, ARM-ID, gave us a small but limited capability to interact. But ultimately, we've obviously superseded that with new technologies and with larger context windows because it was limited. It was limited in that it could only take so much information at a time. And if you really wanted to get the value of the large language model against your Sentinel incident, you had to pull all that information from the incident and hand it over to it.
Now, one of the things that I think you're right, Rod did do it, but Rod, did you pass that over to OpenAI? Because one of the concerns was, let's not put this in Chat GPT. That you start reducing the guardrails when you get outside your tenant/description. Or did you pump?
I originally started with the public version, OpenAI version, ChatGPT, but very quickly learned that just how open that is and how kind of super scary it was. So then well, of course, we didn't all get access to Azure OpenAI immediately, but when I did, that's when I started piping everything over.
Yeah. So public disclosure, when you piping your stuff out to a publicly shared model of consumption SaaS service, really understand how your data is being used. Is it used to being trained something else? Sharing the actual application SaaS thing. So understand, the repercussions of piping that information out. Right. Sorry about that, guys. Go ahead.
No, it's great. Good context, good backstory on it. Yeah, so doing it now where I'm doing this all from is with the Azure OpenAI service. So it all stays within your tenant. The data's yours. You can put whatever guardrails on it you want. You can keep them there. You can, and you're not risking your information going somewhere else. It's not storing your prompts natively. So you can set up a service to do that, but it's not storing your prompts or doing anything nefarious with the information that you're giving to it. So I thought, what if there's another way to do this? And I thought there has to be. Is there a way to pull in information from Sentinel? Can you do that without having to go through can I learn information about a Sentinel incident or capture information from Azure Log Analytics without having to do it through the interface here, through the GUI, but instead doing it through code? So quick little web search and REST API for Sentinel. And searching for the Microsoft Sentinel REST API on the Microsoft Learn website. And that brought me here to the information that I needed to incorporate in a Python script, how to grab information from a Sentinel incident. So whether it's Sentinel, I think it was under reference, incidents, overview. So from here, I can learn how to use Python to create or update an incident, to create an incident, no kidding, to delete an incident, get it, list the alerts, bookmarks, entities, etc., and eventually learn how to list the relations, list a bunch of the other things that may not actually show up in here, but they're all out there. They're all able to, you can pull that information from the API. Well, so now I can access Sentinel information from a Python script. What do I do with it? Well, you can also access Azure OpenAI services from that same script. So essentially, all we're doing is grabbing the back end details. And I showed this on the last episode, but it's always worth, let's see, I think it's envs/faux-pilot, might be env bin activate. Yay, that worked. All right, so for example, I'm not going to go into it in detail, but like incident entities full, this guy right here. If I Python, I might have to Python 3, incident entities full.py, this should, if it works, oh, hey, look, it's empty. Well, that's good. So if it was full, it would, actually, I'm not sure why that's not working right now. This is what I get for not prepping this piece beforehand. But it gives a really long synopsis or the whole JSON document JSON file full of all the incident entity information that has to do with that particular incident. And it's very verbose. So it was overwhelming, obviously, that old GPT-3 model. But now with GPT-4, 128,000 tokens, we have the ability to give it a lot more information and then to extract that information for security purposes. So I'll just drop right into my AML. So from Sentinel, we have the ability to go to notebooks. And it will give you a list of a bunch of notebooks of Jupyter notebooks that you can download into an Azure Machine Learning workspace and then execute those workbooks from there. I've also been playing around with these default workbooks quite a bit, and they are awesome in the way that they expand the full capabilities of Sentinel. And maybe if we have a little bit of time at the end, I can show you guys some of that work, because it's
big shout out to Chi, who's at Microsoft, the PM over the notebooks.
Who is
Smart,
back? Right.
Who is back at Microsoft. Welcome back, Chi. Come on the show.
awesome.
Sorry about that.
No, don't be sorry. So you can launch your notebooks from here. I'm just already got it up and running in Azure Machine Learning Studio, and should have my notebooks there, which I do. And all I did was I wrote a notebook that allows me to a Python script that allows me to run it in an Azure Machine Learning workspace, pull all the secrets that I need to access to communicate, to authenticate to the Azure OpenAI service and the Sentinel API. So all the authentication keys and secrets that I need to do that, I get those from Azure Key Vault. It then pulls the information from Sentinel, passes it on over to Azure OpenAI Studio, and brings it back. If I integrated a RAG, retrieval augmented generation capability with this, or function with this capability, I would also need like an Azure storage resource, and then the Azure Cognitive Search, or the Azure AI Search, so that I could index that. So that I could index that storage, and all that, everything that I put in there. So, for example, if I wanted, if I had particular SOPs for what team might respond to a particular type of incident, well, that SOP, the standard operating procedure, the SOPs could be sitting in an Azure storage container that is indexed, that I use as a retrieval store for the LLM model. So now, instead of it just giving me generic answers about my environment, now it can give me very specific answers about my environment and how I would respond to things happening within there.
So let me stop you right there. Unless I'm going to break your train of thought. When you get a break in your thing, let me know. I want to ask you a question real quick.
Yeah, sure. So we actually have the FoPilot script up now. Please go ahead.
So this is awesome, but let me look at it from this standpoint, and you sort of tell me the target audience for this. I sort of think I know the target audience for this, but individuals like yourself who take your skills, like, oh man, I know how to do this. Everybody's not sophisticated as you. You're really good at what you do, right? It's evident. So when I look at this, how much of this is already sort of incumbent inside of Copilot for Security? And I'll tell you why I asked this. It sounds like these features that you're showcasing are in CFS. Is that the case, that I could do this in Copilot for Security? And you and Rod are probably going to be more versed in that than I am. So that question goes out to you and Rod. But you're the guest. You go first. I said Disney. You go first, Robert.
Sure, absolutely. Every feature that's within this is present within Copilot for Security. Copilot for Security is the Rolls Royce of natural language processing within a security platform. I can't touch Copilot for Security with what I'm doing here, but what I can do is provide a piece of that capability within Azure with tools that are already available in clouds or in environments where that capability may not have already been released.
Great.
Rod?
So the next question goes to you, Rod. So with this, is this a great alternative to those that Copilot seems to have left out? Copilot seems to have left out small to medium corporate and small to medium business. And how easy would it be to go in and take some of those very important features? Because you can see in the studio that Python is a huge component of how Copilot works, right? Once you learn what's on the secret sauce, you get an idea of what ingredients are in the sauce. So this question you rise more directly. Is this a good alternative until such time the affordability of that can be brought down in buying SEUs? And is this a play for partners? Hey, I can give you Copilot like feature sets based on the Copilot thing until such time you can afford SEUs. Just pie in the sky thought about that.
Well, to me, it's really it's two different things. It's apples and oranges, right? Because consider that this is not zero cost, right? There's a cost somewhere. Either you need that skill set, you need to pay for that skill set, or even if it's a partner, eventually, right? Copilot for Security is going to be maybe more accessible. And in fact, there's some things we're working on now. Some things you saw this today, Edward, that some things I'm working on where we're trying to develop some use cases for IT pros to use Copilot for Security and instead of just security teams. So we're kind of working down that path to try to determine and figure that out. However, yeah, what Robert's doing here is super amazing. And there's a lot of capability here that could accomplish, some of those things that Copilot for Security could do. But do you have the investment? Do you have that budget to hire someone to create this, maintain this, continue to update it? I mean, there is kind of that cost comparison that you have to do. And I'm not smart enough to do the whole comparison in my head.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. One thing that I want to ask is, it seems to be that if Copilot is the thing, that this is the deconstruction and innovative center. If you can take the plugins and the prompts that are in Copilot for Security and bring them somewhere where you can see how they work, you could possibly enhance those things and then add them back as plugins. Am I too far from that, Rod? If you can just deconstruct what's going on in the secret sauce of a sort, and then come back and say, okay, the way that you could took someone's old KQL query or logic app and then improve it. I wonder if you can take aspects of Copilot for Security, bring it into AI Studio, deconstruct it, and go, I can actually make this better because I'm bad at this thing. If I do it this way, that does it.
Well, I think it's more along the lines of looking at the extensibility of what Copilot for Security has, because this, again, you can extend this, but it's going to take some effort, going to take some skill sets, going to take some time through the whole DevOps process into production. With Copilot for Security, it is so super easy to create your own plugins, whether it's API, file-based, KQL, whatever it happens to be. If you see some additional capability that you would love for Copilot for Security to have, it's probably going to show up there eventually. But if you want it today, I can create a plugin, 15 minutes, something like that.
Look at you bragging. You say that, I can do it in 15 minutes,
No, and I'm not
one hand.
I'm not super intelligent with the plugins. It's just, we have a number of templates out there on the GitHub repository. You want to create an API plugin? Here's your template. Figure out what your key is and super secret sauce, and then just plug it in and off you go. We made it super easy.
So sorry, but I just want to get a little bit of juxtaposition on that, Robert, between, hey, this is what you're doing here, and this is what Microsoft is trying to solve for by saying, take what you haven't, make it less onerous and be able to do it. But I see your product as being a great troubleshooter. If you can sit here and say, this thing ain't doing what I want it to do, this plugin. I wonder, it's not working because the plugin is not doing what my brain thinks it should do. Bring it here and I can look at it, and then you can test it and go, oh, either I need to prompt better, or I need to go back and modify or create my own plugin to be able to do this. I would call your product, if I was making this a product, AIP, AI Proving Ground. We can prove it out right here, right, and do it. So go ahead, sir.
Wouldn't it be like a middle ground though? Isn't this like the bridge? Is that how you would position it, Robert, for folks who don't necessarily have access yet?
Yes, 100%. This would be, hey, I want the ability to analyze an incident with natural language processing, period. That's it. That's where I want to get to. I know that Copilot for Security is the holy grail of that. That's where I want to be. I want to be there. It's not available right now, but I have a need. I need this capability. And what I'm doing is just a lot of hard work on the back end to bring this capability to fruition, so that I can even demonstrate that it's possible. If you can demonstrate that something's possible, Bob's your uncle.
Yeah, the possible makes you want to be able to say that my work won't go in vain. Let me give you another thing. The absence of something is not the evidence of. What I would say the evidence of is not the absence of. You can go with this. The fact that you still have the ability to do this in Sentinel, and it hasn't been deprecated, notebooks and things like that, lets you know that Copilot hasn't completely run shot over the inherent ability to do this yourself if you wanted to. Because if it was, and I believe at one time, Rod, if I heard it right, they had thought about deprecating notebooks in Sentinel. Right? It wasn't gonna go. It may have been just a casual conversation by some tech pundit, but
Well, it was based on usage numbers. Yeah, they're like, well, yeah.
Because the group I used to work in, Defender Experts, once I sort of understood just what was happening in the background, I didn't realize how heavily they relied upon notebooks of a sort. It was a lot when I got to see it. I'm like, I see this now. But because the features are still in Sentinel means that, hey, there is a need to be able to do what Robert is doing right now, to be able to pull this stuff out. That makes sense.
Yeah, as much as we've continued to increase the capabilities of Sentinel, and then the way we've realigned the Defender XDR portal, and it's got Sentinel there also, and we've just increased its capabilities so much that maybe some of the initial use cases for Sentinel notebooks, where it was, well, here's how you can do things for advanced hunting where you can't do them in Sentinel. Well, now a lot of that capability is already in Sentinel. So I can see maybe where some of that, attitude towards Sentinel notebooks can go away. Well, maybe not, because as long as we have the ability to interact with the data in a way that wasn't intended, Sentinel notebooks are going to have a place here, I think.
Well, and there are customers that only use notebooks for security purposes.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't use Sentinel. They use notebooks outside of that.
Yeah, they did. And for our listeners who are not really familiar, by this time, if you've been listening to the show we're when you're talking Sentinel notebooks, you're really talking Jupyter notebooks,
Yes,
right? This is what we're doing, and we're just inserting the ability to call out by using different languages. Python just being the more prevalent language inside notebooks, but you can call PowerShell, you can call JavaScript, you can call whatever else you want to call in it, right? And I think you can do the same thing in Copilot for Security. So that's cool. But yeah, notebooks. When you look at the one that's native to Sentinel, especially the 365 triage, I believe, it's pretty dope. It's good. It does some really good stuff.
They really are. I've actually got those pulled up, and I'm more than happy to bring one up here in just a moment and kind of poke around in that and show you how those actually work. They're pretty awesome for security enhancement, and that's why, like you said, there's organizations that are relying entirely on their Sentinel notebooks for doing a lot of their advanced hunting. So in this particular incident, we can see the incident number. There's 124. This is the same one that I showed you earlier that I would have had to go in and do a hunt and figure out exactly what was going on, or at least do an investigation. If I didn't know, if that wasn't clue enough that it was a canned attack that I ran myself, but I would have to figure out what was going on. And then if I did figure out what was going on, I might be in a position as an analyst where I would have to report that up to headquarters, or report that to a boss, to division head, to a director, and say, hey, here's what happened. What if we could just simply take all, Rod's done so much work showing us Copilot for Security and what it's capable of doing. We all know that it does that, but somebody who doesn't have access to it might have to do it by hand. Let's bounce back over, though, to this notebook where all I did was I ran this script. So I just ran this script which first asks me to enter the incident number. So I entered 124. And then it asked, what would you like to know about incident number 124? So I'm not doing cross-incident query. I'm not comparing multiple incidents, not saying, show me more like this, or is this part of a larger campaign? I'm just looking at this one incident. But that process of going in and figuring out what happened in that incident might take a while. Well, instead, in the time that we were talking about notebook capabilities, it's already, since processed my question, which was, what happened during this incident? What MITRE attack phases were accomplished? And how can I remediate the incident? Just some basic information. And this is what it gave me. Based on the provided incident details, it appears a multi-stage cybersecurity incident occurred. The medium severity, new status, it's not been resolved or dismissed. It answered my question about MITRE attack phases. So there's your initial access, execution, and persistence with the actual tactic ID. So adversary gained entry, attempted to run code, and attempted to maintain their foothold. So established persistence. Specifically, it goes into specific details about how it was done. It says suspicious behavior by Microsoft Word was observed. So now I know that I'm looking for an actual Word document, or at least traces of one. And then to remediate the incident, the following steps are recommended based on the remediation steps. Notice we've got validate the alerts, investigate the PowerShell commands, inspect any downloaded files. This is a step-by-step remediation checklist. So I don't even have to figure out what to do about it. I mean, of course, I'm going to validate, as an analyst, that these are steps that need to be checked off. But there they are. They're already written out for you. So you've already got your incident. I could ask it to write an executive summary of the incident. I could ask it to, tell me about the entities that were involved in the incident. So a lot of capability here just with a simple Python script. We're not even talking about Jupyter Notebooks. This is just straight Python.
Yeah, straight Python into it. But this is good stuff, man. My mind is spinning around. Maybe you should have a 3-part webinar and we go through this. I think that what you are doing would need the proper audience, and I think the audience would be partners, because right now partners are struggling trying to figure out how they provide value with Copilot for security, right? Because the management model is not there yet. There's no lighthouse. You got to give partners, role-based access into the environment. The partners are learning on your SCU instead of saying dime. They're learning on your SCU, right, of a sort. And being able to see this thing may give this some a little bit of innovation, because a lot of partners say, "Oh, we're going to do Copilot for security. We're going to be this front partner." A lot of them have come up wanting, right? I think they're just talking because they don't want to be out-talked. But if they had this level of skill to be able to come in, that would then show a deep understanding to the customer. Hey, we're not just one step ahead of you. We're not just one web blog ahead of you. We are actually in this thing at its rawest before Microsoft put a pretty box around it, right? So when I can see a partner that can do this, I'm going to go, okay, you have a more than superficial understanding of what they're trying to do with their semi-canned solution of a sort. But this is good. I think you should do a webinar, man. Have everybody come over and take a look at this. And it should be geared toward partners. And you can tell the partners, hey, I'm not going to teach you that. I want to teach you this. And if you got the foundational work, you can get the rest of the stuff. Because when you look at it, this is the same thing that the embedded experience is going to spit out for you in Copilot. Unless I'm wrong.
Yeah, sure. I've actually made this available on a GitHub repository. I'm not going to say the name of it right now. We can talk about it between us before the after the show, and then determine whether or not you want to put that out there. Because the code that I wrote, it's free. I don't care who has it, honestly. I just want to get this capability out there to anybody that needs it. And so, yeah, the idea there being the partner wouldn't have to go in and develop all the code. All they'd have to do is take the code, drop it in, set up the key vault, which they obviously know how to do, set up the AOAI instance, have the Sentinel set up. If they want to build a RAG based on behind it, they can do that. But this capability here, I just want to get out to anybody that wants to use it because it's powerful. And it's just a tiny little snippet of the tiniest little taste of the full capability of Copilot for Security. If that doesn't tell you what I think about Copilot for Security and what it can do for an organization, this is just a tiniest little piece of it, but it's powerful.
Hey, one last question before we respect the time of our listeners here. With your new gig, Robert, how does this make your gig better? You doing inside of your job as a TSAI, and you cover agency, right? You're an agency.
I'm
You love
covering
agency.
DoD all.
Yeah. How are you utilizing this in your job? Just a quick answer. If you can't say it just yet, say, hey, I can't really say it. But I just want to close out with that question right there, because you're putting a lot of work in. This is your thing, and Microsoft has a way of bringing you in like this. Don't look that way. Don't look that way. So how are you being able to say, hey, I'm really, really good at this, and I've done this thing right here? Are you being able to find that opportunity? You may not have yet. You just started your gig, but do you foresee yourself being able to use it?
My new team, my AEs, my account execs, my CSAs, they're all very, very well aware of the fact that I am their security and AI guy. That if they have a specific niche need for security with AI, that they come to me.
And if I am one of those, cynics in DoD, because you got a lot of old heads with stars right here, right? And they're gonna have a very particular way they want you to talk to them. If you come talking product and selling a logo, they're gonna look at you crazy. But if you can come in and talk holistically, I am an AI expert. I'm gonna tell you what's gonna happen, right? Have we learned nothing from Mission Impossible? It may be that, right? And we'll go. Man, but this is super exciting, man. I'm glad you came back for part 2 of this, and coming back on the show. It made me think about a couple of things if I go through my learning, because I have to cover this now, and I don't want my learning to be so narrow focused that I don't see the bigger picture. Because to the world, there's more than just Copilot, and there are other AI models. And you're seeing Google trying to do this. AWS is going to try to do it. You're going to see a standalone security company that that does this. That's going to come up. A lot of these security companies are putting their AI in it. But I'd like to understand the big brain technology behind it.
Well, also, I think we shouldn't overlook the fact that anyone with this skill set, like Robert, he has moved on to a different role, something that he at this moment in his career is more aligned with. Other people probably can appreciate that. They're in something. This is a skill set you absolutely should have if you love to tinker and you love to work with things like this, right? So this is definitely some things that you would want to know. And I will share. We shared your GitHub repository the first episode, and I'm going to share it again because, this is some great code for you to take a look at. I think it's super important. There's organizations that will use Copilot for Security. There are people like myself that like to dig into the guts and figure out how this thing works. There's more of us, I think, in IT than there is the other folks.
And for our listeners who have developer skills, who are looking to break into to information security or cyber, you could tinker your way into a job. Yeah, you really could. Developers have an upper hand for those who want to enter the career thing. Even above, I would say some traditional network security folks, GRC, compliance. If you can write code, someone can easily retool you, right? Because everything is just code, right? And I think you could absolutely passion project or tinker your way into a nice job by knowing this, right? And do it.
I showed you guys on my last. I showed you Edward and Rod after the last episode what I've done with having code write code, and it's amazing. Everything is just going to change in the way we do everything from security to development.
So as we get toward the back end of the year, let's have a fun episode. I'm gonna ask you to do this for us, if you don't mind. Have you on 3 times in the year? You might have set the record for coming on the most times in a year. How about we have a show where you demonstrate how AI takes over the world?
Disney trilogy. Yes.
I don't know that I want to be the guy that's known for that.
Yes. I want you to be the guy that wrote Skynet, that developed that. I think we should have an episode. Hey, how does AI actually take over the world? If you were going to develop an intelligence to take over the world, how would you do it? I mean,
You know,
Mission
I'd
Impossible.
write
It's
that
gonna
book.
spot me. It's gonna spot me. I know. I'm just a cybernetic organism, living tissue over metal endoskeleton. It's fine.
Yeah.
Don't clock me. It's fine.
Yeah,
You know, I'd write that book, but it's been done so many times.
it's been Mission Impossible. You know, you got 100-year-old, spy guy jumping out and beating up people 25, 30 pounds bigger than he is. So, it's all right. But Robert, thanks so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. I just wanted people who didn't have the time to really see you live to see, hey man, this dude's good. If you want some context to it, go back and watch the previous show that Robert came on, then you'll stitch all this together, right? But if we want to have a fun show, we need to do like Marvel Comics does. They have something called What If. One of my favorite things they've done on Disney.
Yeah.
What
That
If
would
is
be
awesome.
amazing. Edward,
Yeah.
yes, you're killing it. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, everyone, thanks so much for coming on, listening to us. I mean, we're in that high time at Microsoft. It's hard because everybody's really trying to figure out what we got to do. But we really appreciate our guests who will work at Microsoft and those who don't, who are part of the ecosystem. We know you're busy. Listen to us next Monday. We're here. We're doing the things. Go back and listen to this show and the previous shows. Really, really good. Michael Malone, and then we also had Heidi Richter.
Hike
Hike.
Ritter. Yeah.
I'm gonna get that name one day. Hike it. Yeah, like
Hike
hike it. Yeah, there we go.
It's like hi
we-
and then Kevin. She was very hi Kev.
That's what she said on that. And I still didn't get it. Hike it. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for coming on. Good times.
All right.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Everybody.